Okay, so let's get right into it. If you're already sort of wondering if this is the right explainer for you, or maybe you're analyzing my tone of voice, maybe you've even rewound this intro once already, yeah, this one's definitely for you. Because that's the classic sign, isn't it? That little step back, that meta-awareness, where there's a voice in your head analyzing the other voice in your head. It's really the core of what we're talking about today. And if this slide feels just a little too familiar, well, you're in exactly the right place. You know, a lot of people just write off overthinking as a simple bad habit, something like biting your nails. But that view completely misses what's actually going on upstairs. This isn't some kind of character flaw. It's your brain's actual hardware, a specific network that's just running in constant overdrive.
So, what is really happening in the brain when your mind just refuses to shut off? It turns out it's way more than just worrying. There's some pretty fascinating neurology at play here.
So I want you to meet your default mode network, or DMN for short. Now, for most people, this is the part of the brain that kind of kicks in when you're daydreaming or just thinking about yourself. But in overthinkers, it's not just on, it's like it's cranked up to 11, constantly replaying the past and rehearsing every possible future.
And here's where it gets really interesting. What is this network actually doing all that time? Because there's a massive difference between thinking that actually solves a problem and just getting stuck spinning your wheels.
And that spinning loop, it has a name. It's called rumination. This is the official term for when you get stuck cycling through the same thoughts over and over and over again, without ever getting any closer to an answer. It feels like you're working hard on the problem, but you're actually just stuck inside of it.
And this quote just nails it perfectly. Every single time you replay that awkward conversation or you pick apart that weird email, you're not getting closer to a solution, you're just getting better at rehearsing the problem itself, which only strengthens its hold on you.
So, and this is crucial, this endless rehearsal isn't harmless. Far from it. Research shows it actually makes negative feelings stronger in the moment. Instead of processing an emotion and letting it go, rumination basically traps it. It preserves it, like a fossil stuck in amber. And over the long term, this pattern is a significant risk factor for depression.
But why? Why on earth would our brains do this? Well, it turns out this isn't a bug. It's actually a feature, one that, once upon a time, was incredibly useful.
See, for a lot of overthinkers, this all started as a brilliant survival skill. If you grew up in an environment where you had to predict a parent's mood or read a social situation perfectly just to feel okay, well then thinking 10 steps ahead literally kept you safe. Your brain wasn't broken, it was being incredibly smart.
The problem is that skill, which was once so adaptive, is now being misapplied everywhere. That same hypervigilance that helped you read a parent's face is now being used to build an entire case file out of a one-word text message. Your brain doesn't really know the difference between the old danger and the new perceived one.
And this leads us to one of the cruelest ironies of the whole thing, what I call the empathy paradox. It's this huge gap between how you treat other people and how you treat yourself.
Just think about this scenario. You have to cancel plans with a friend. For most people, this is a 9-second task. But for the overthinker, it becomes a full-blown crisis negotiation. You're debating every single word choice, trying to account for every possible way it could be misinterpreted, only to send pretty much the exact same text 15 minutes later. Does that sound familiar at all?
And this right here is the paradox, this intense analysis. It often comes from a place of deep empathy. You're trying so hard not to hurt anyone's feelings. You'll spend 40 minutes convincing a friend they are absolutely not a burden. And then you'll spend the entire night lying awake convincing yourself that you are one. It's the same mind, just with two totally different sets of rules.
Okay, so if the problem is thinking too much, the solution should be simple, right? Just stop. Just pull the emergency brake on the thought train. If only it were that simple. As we're about to see, the very act of trying to stop is what leads to the most maddening part of this entire experience.
All right, let's do a quick experiment. For the next 5 seconds, I want you to do everything in your power to not think about a white polar bear. Don't picture its fur, don't picture its nose, just don't think about it.
So what happened? I'm willing to bet a big white bear popped right into your head. This is a classic psychological finding called the rebound effect. The very act of trying to push a thought away basically tells your brain to be on the lookout for it, making it come roaring back the second you let your guard down.
And does that sound familiar? It should. This is precisely why being told to just stop overthinking it is literally the worst advice you can get. It's not about a lack of willpower.
You are neurologically setting yourself up for that thought to come flooding back even stronger. It is a perfect psychological trap.
So, if you can't force the thoughts to stop, what in the world are you supposed to do? Well, this is where we need to shift our entire approach. We have to move from fighting with our minds to having a totally new kind of conversation with them, a whole new goal.
And this is the fundamental shift, right here. The old goal was all about elimination. How do I make this feeling go away? The new goal is about curiosity. Instead of trying to silence the thought, you turn towards it and you ask it a question. What are you trying to protect me from right now? You acknowledge it's there for a reason, an old protective reason, and you get curious.
And that brings us to what might be the most important takeaway of all. Chasing some fantasy of a perfectly quiet, silent mind is just setting yourself up to feel like a failure. The real achievable goal is to build a more honest relationship with your own mind, to learn how to see the thoughts without having to believe them or fight them.
So I'll just leave you with this question. What if the point isn't to stop the spiral from ever happening again? What if instead the goal is just to get better at seeing it start? To be able to look at it and say, okay, there you are. I know why you're here. Because in that moment of awareness, you're no longer just a passenger on a runaway train. You actually get to decide how much of your evening this thought is going to get. And that awareness, that simple choice, that can change everything.